Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News. What's going on, Gail?
Hey, it's the one-on-one edition of the Pound for Pound Report tonight.
Yeah, I know. Fingers crossed, Daniel from the Inscriber will join us later on in the show. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, first of all, for those who are checking us out live on YouTube, my apologies. Some delays on our end. My apologies for that. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, live YouTube show, podcast, as well as blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. To check out all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the blog page is the place to go to, P4P Boxing Report. .wordpress.com. That's the link. You check the top right of the blog page. You will find links to where to find us all over social media, where to find us on all available platforms that carry RSS feed. Um, the links to the PayPal and donation, PayPal and Cash Me donation links. Let donation be the best nation. Most things are not free, including the production of this podcast. So, if you could shoot us a little bit of coin our way, we will greatly appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, um, link to my Beachbody online fitness coach page. Uh, Let's Build Together November challenge is underway. If you're interested, fun yet challenging workouts, nutrition tips, motivation to let motivation tips. Let's work together. Let's build together to build a better you, a better me, a better us, a better we. Again, just hit me up on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JRSC, or just hit the link to the coaching page on Pound for Pound Boxer Report blog page. Let's get things going by recapping what went down this weekend. The big fight, of course, was took place in Vegas. Canelo Alvarez moving up two weight divisions from middleweight to light heavyweight to challenge Sergey Kovalev was his WBO light heavyweight title. Canelo stopping Kovalev in the 11th round to win the belt. I go to you, Gail. Here's my thing. Kovalev kept the fight close and competitive. My problem was in watching the fight, even as he was doing well, even as he was boxing well. In fact, I had him slightly ahead at the time of the stoppage. My issue is, of course, we knew that Kovalev had to stay on the outside and box, but the thing that disappointed me about Kovalev is that I didn't see many hard punches. I didn't see him fight with much force, even as he kept the fight at the distance. He was supposedly the quote unquote bigger man, uh, still has punching power, but I didn't see that punching power evident during this fight. Far too often, in my opinion, he let Canelo, excuse me, walk him down without much resistance. Canelo, being the experienced fighter that he was, he got the sense that he could deal with what Kovalev was dishing out and kept it cool and composed. And when he had the opportunity to strike, he did. I give credit to Canelo for what he did, Gail, but I was frustrated by the effort that Kovalev put out. It was an element of weakness there. Am I being too critical?
No, not at all. Uh, it's interesting. The consensus was, oh, Kovalev's the bigger man. Canelo's the smaller man. Let me tell you, having been in Las Vegas all week, having watched Kovalev work out in San Diego the week prior, and having worked on and off, full disclosure, in the past, not in this fight, for main events, and having worked with Sergey, Kovalev is the shorter man. He was not the smaller man. Not at all. He carried his weight at 175 extremely well. And come on, who are we kidding? Canelo had become extremely skilled at making weight at 160 and then rehydrating. The big difference with this fight was he didn't have to do that anymore. That made it a hell of a lot easier for him. He was able to worry less about cutting weight and more about training and putting on strength. So for anybody who still thought that Kovalev was by far the smaller man in the ring, I have news for you. You need to go adjust the focus on your screen or get your glasses cleaned or whatever the hell it is. He was equally as big. I'm very glad that you made these distinctions about Kovalev's skill versus Canelo's skills. And do credit to Canelo. He was by
First of all, I want to thank Olaf the Mighty for joining us live. He posed an interesting question, Gail, that a lot of people are bringing up in the aftermath. And the question / word that a lot of people throwing around is the word fixed. Let's put it out here, kind of the elephant in the room here. The delay that took place between the Ryan Garcia fight, his one round KO win, and this fight. Everybody was talking about it on boxing Twitter. Let's be truthful here. It's a sad indictment that for the reason for the delay, in which DAZN and Golden Boy are not going to say it, but we might as well say it here. The delay was to let the UFC card that was taking place at the same time. They wanted that to end before Canelo and Kovalev took place. I don't like it. It speaks negatively of Golden Boy and DAZN. As Leonard Ellaby said on Twitter, you would not see this for a Floyd card. You would not see this for a TMT card. Other fighters was talking about it. Other managers, promoters was talking about it. Speak on that, please. Oh gosh, I see Gail is not there. She stepped away. Hopefully she can bring her back. I'll just go on until hopefully she can come back here. Ask her some questions here and some comments here in the chat before she comes back. I think she's back now. I'll just re-ask the question, Gail. Let's get to the kind of the elephant in the room here. Olaf mentioned the word fixed. A lot of people were saying that after the fight. The elephant in the room, the delay between the Ryan Garcia bout and the main event. Golden Boy would not admit this. DAZN would not admit this, but let's speak truth to power here. The reason for the lengthy delay was to let the UFC card that was taking place at the same time, they wanted that to end before Kovalev and Canelo stepped into the ring. It's a sad indictment on DAZN and Golden Boy that they let that take place. I don't like it. As I was saying, Leonard Ellaby was on Twitter railing against it. He was saying that this wouldn't happen for a Mayweather fight. He's absolutely right. He said this wouldn't happen for a Mayweather Promotions fight card. He's absolutely right. Managers, promoters, fighters, fans were all speaking of this. Being at ringside, your reaction for those at press row and from the fans or maybe other fighters that you were talking about to the delay.
Well, you're absolutely right. I posted to social media exactly what Ellaby said. He's right on target. Can you imagine Floyd Mayweather allowing this to happen? Hell no. Absolutely not. But I will say this, slightly in Golden Boy's defense. The tail wagging the dog is DAZN. This was a DAZN decision. It was somehow DAZN's idea that boxing audience and the UFC audience are exactly the same. And hey, if you've got all these people watching UFC, and then you can promote your other fights coming up by cross-purposing boxing and UFC one after the other. It's a good thing. I don't know what they were thinking. The executives clearly do not understand the boxing audience demographic versus the UFC demographic. Sure, there's crossover with some of it, but not all of it. Meanwhile, you're asking two very highly paid athletes, one of whom is your absolute cash cow, the highest. Let us remember, right now, Canelo Alvarez is the highest paid athlete in the world of any sport. And they made him cool his heels in a dressing room with his hands fully wrapped and gloved and Kovalev for an hour and a half. What the hell were they thinking? Just crazy making stuff. Now, in the arena versus all of you at home cooling your heels, getting more pissed by the minute, I'm sure, it was a little bit different story. On press row, we're thinking, okay, we got to cool our heels for now and now. But the truth is, we all had work to do. I got to post my undercard story nice and early. I was all right. I used the time. A lot of folks strolled the arena, caught interviews. There were a lot of folks in the arena to talk to. It was more or less okay. And the fans were getting to watch the UFC card on the video screens and on the central jumbotron in the MGM Grand Garden Arena. And believe me, the drinks were still being served. People were chatting. So the time flew for the fans in the arena fairly fast. They got to see the UFC card. It was entertainment for them. They seemed to be fine with it. There wasn't a whole lot of real complaining that I could tell. There was one really funny moment though, when Diaz and Masvidal started to walk out. For some reason, they had a little mental disconnect, and they were looking up at the screen, seeing these walkouts, and thinking they were coming out of the tunnel at the MGM Grand Live in Las Vegas. So they were confused about what they were looking at. Normally, if you're sitting inside a big arena like that, you're going to see video of the ring walk as the guys are coming out from underneath or backstage or down the tunnel or however they've done the runway for them to come in. And, they'll rush to that kind of gangway there to get video or whatever. So all these people suddenly rushed the walkway from underneath the MGM Grand thinking they were going to see these guys walk out. So it's sort of like an animal seeing itself in a mirror. That's sort of what was going on. Essentially, they were not upset by it. They were drinking. They were watching entertainment on the screens. They were fine. Media, we were grumbling, but we all used the time well. We were sitting there. But the two fighters were absolutely screwed over. And if you're going to go cold like that without a warm-up, who's it going to affect more? A fairly young, in his prime fighter, or relatively speaking, a young in his prime fighter, versus the older guy. Well, I can tell you, I'm a older athlete, and it takes a hell of a lot more now for me to fully warm up in a workout than it did 20 years ago, right? That had to have affected Kovalev. I mean, why wouldn't it have? And just to have your mental game thrown off, your focus have to be readjusted after an hour and a half cooling your heels, couldn't be good for anybody. But the guy more able to snap back mentally and physically in every single way had to be Canelo. Had to be. So if I'm Egis Klimas, if I'm Kathy Duva, and if I'm Sergey Kovalev, I'm not real happy about that. But Canelo, his strength was apparent. His speed was far better than that of Kovalev's. And to me, every time when there's a differential of speed like that, speed kills. Speed kills in boxing. And more than anything, all of Canelo's other assets aside, it was the speed that did it. The speed getting to cut off the ring, the speed throwing counter punches. You could see Kovalev thinking, okay, I know where he is. I know I can get a punch to him, but I'm going to get a counter punch in return. I'm not sure I want to throw. I think that
It seems like I may have lost Gail for a second there. Hope to have her back. I'll just read some comments here in the chat. Uh, First of all, I want to thank Ivan DC20 for joining us live on the show. Read some comments in the chat. He says that Ivan said that Canelo's body structure helps him a lot in making weight easily, and only with and not only and only with not only with muscles, but when it also becomes. Let me read it correctly. Canelo's body structure helps him a lot in making weight easily, and only with muscles, not by gaining body fat. You also say, Ivan, in the chat that not everyone likes both sports. Some want to watch only UFC, some only want to watch boxing. Here's the problem with that, Ivan. Flip the script here. You would not see a Dana White do something like this. Wait for a boxing card to end before he begins his UFC card. He's not doing it. You wouldn't see subsequently an HBO, what was when HBO did do boxing, a Showtime, Fox pay-per-view, do something like this. The only time I've seen something like this happen was for Floyd and Manny, and that had more to do with the issue of there was all kinds of problems with the pay-per-view and the stream and people having the ability to watch television because how that fight was rushed and everything was flooded and just a bunch of technical issues on that. This right here, what we saw, this is unprecedented. This is an unprecedented move. Seems like Olaf cannot hear us, unfortunately. See if we'll fix some things here while I keep talking. You may have to refresh your screen, Olaf, in order to hear us. But I'll get back to my comments. This is a really unprecedented move. I've never seen something like this done in this context, Gail. UFC would not do this for boxing. Why is a boxing entity doing that for UFC? We don't take. I've never seen a promotion, a network capitulate to UFC in this way. Your reaction?
Well, remember who we're dealing with. We're dealing with DAZN. They are new to this. They are new to combat sports. I think this is the growing pains of the new media environment we're in, the streaming environment. The executives at DAZN do not specifically come from boxing at the top, especially in the United States. This is new to them. And I hope they will admit soon down the road that this was a painful mistake early in their development, covering the sport of boxing. And they'll say, okay, we get it. We hear you. Lessons learned. It does happen. It happens to the best of companies, that they just really blow it. And it was clearly a business decision, not a sporting decision. You know, sometimes we understand that and we live with it from time to time as the fans, but this time it had such a direct, real-time impact, not just on us, but I believe the quality of the fight that we saw, because I do believe, whether it's been stated or not by anybody, that Kovalev could not be the best version of himself as the older fighter with more tread on the tires, waiting for an hour and a half. It just
I
was
mean, the fight
not
didn't begin
good.
till after 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. What is that?
Yeah. Well, for East Coast fans, man, that was even rougher. In Las Vegas, it's a little after 10. Kovalev's used to fighting on the East Coast. That was not a big deal for him. Canelo, not particularly a big deal for him. But it was the wait. It wasn't the time. It was the wait. In my opinion, it would have almost been just as bad if the fight was scheduled, say, at 4 o'clock West Coast time, and they had to wait till 5:30. That is still an hour and a half to cool down, to lose focus. I imagine sitting with your hands wrapped and your gloves on for an hour and a half isn't good either. I mean, it's just bad all the way around, an impact on their athletic performance. But it is the younger fighter who's going to snap back faster, and that's advantage to Canelo, intended or unintended.
You were at the post-fight presser. Was there anything said by either camp or media members? Were they asking any questions about that?
Okay, so in the general session with everybody involved, believe it or not a single question was asked. Very disappointing to me. I made an attempt to get the mic, didn't happen. They shut this down pretty quickly. Admittedly, it was late. And it was primarily all of Golden Boy's fighters who had, all won. They were in very good spirits. Things went very well for them, in the ring Saturday night. They were very happy. So they kind of had their little, victory dance. The only comment made other than the fanfare for the winners was the notification by Kathy Duva that she and manager Igis Klimas had absolutely insisted Kovalev go to a hospital to be checked. He did not want to. He insisted he was fine. They said, not your call, you're going. I do like that. Sometimes you've got to step in and protect an athlete from themselves and their worse nature. So he was not present to answer any questions. Truth be told, even if we'd asked the question about it, the only one directly affected there was Canelo, and none of the responsible parties were really there. DAZN is the responsible party here. Yeah, Golden Boy went along with it, but they're not exactly in the power seat on this one. So what are they going to do? And maybe, I'm sure everyone figured it was going to be minutes at the worst, not an hour and a half. Ryan Garcia, the co-main event, his fight was over in under 2 minutes. Otherwise, they would have eaten another 45 minutes at least just with the fight. Then you get the post-fight stuff. The time gap wouldn't have been as noticeable. So it was a perfect storm. And, lessons learned, really. Lessons learned. Mistakes are recoverable if you learn from them and move on appropriately.
Quickly, let's talk future here for both fighters. Kovalev said he was going to fight on, but if he looks like he did against Canelo, again, I didn't like the fact that he didn't fight with much force. If he looks like that, I don't see him competing with the top light heavyweights out there. Conversely, impressive as the ending was for Canelo, I look at this and I'm saying if he decides to stay at light heavyweight and fights a Bivol, I think Bivol beats him. If he thinks he can fight that kind of fight against that Brahma bull by the name of Beterbiev, no. That's not going to happen. So for me, I see Canelo moving back down, possibly to 168. I don't know if he can make 160 again. Your thoughts on the future for both fighters, Gil?
I'm going to address that last comment. I absolutely agree with you. There is no way in hell he is going to make 160 again. And why would he want to? He had a great camp. He enjoyed himself. He looks good. He clearly when you get him out in the training or camp or in the gym one-on-one, he feels great. He's a different guy. I wrote in my column, I think he's just been hangry for a hell of a long time. He needs to stay at 168. There are good fights there for him. Callum Smith's an obvious choice. Dimitri Bivol wants it. Dimitri Bivol has called out Canelo now for a year. That's totally makeable. Bivol walks around at 175 so easy, it's a joke. He could make 168 if Canelo chooses, or if Canelo wants to fight him at 175, honestly, he'd probably be just from raw strength stronger than Bivol. Bivol, though, it's interesting. Bivol, we thought was going to be a knockout artist after his early pro fights. He's turned out to be a master technician. He knows exactly what it takes to win, and that's what he does. And that does make him a dangerous opponent for Canelo.
Bivol, from a skill perspective, is the best. Would be the best. He would be the most skilled fighter Canelo has fought since Floyd.
Absolutely right. And what would be interesting is to see what lessons Canelo has absorbed all these years from Floyd when he steps in against a guy like Bivol. I think he's learned those lessons very, very well. He's even adapted a lot of those techniques for himself. And I think if asked directly, he would absolutely credit Floyd for teaching him some of that in the ring. And good for him. He should. I think the Bivol matchup is very interesting. I personally would love to see that, but it would be a very technical fight. Not everyone's cup of tea. Callum Smith, that's a good fight for him. Down the road, of course, we'd all love to see him fight David Benavidez, but I don't think right now that's probably a good idea. Maybe they feed him Jaime Munguia, at some point. Who knows?
No, he ain't ready.
I don't.
He ain't ready.
Munguia is definitely not ready. No question about it. Canelo has a lot of options, but 160 is not one of them. So the question then becomes, does a third fight with Triple G become any more interesting to him if they do it in a different weight division? If he fights, if the deal is fight me again at middleweight a third time, nah, not going to happen. Canelo's made that clear. There's no motivation for him. He's not interested. Canelo, to his credit, fights far better when there's a challenge. He likes a challenge. He wants a challenge. And that's there's a lot of Canelo haters out there, but you have to credit him for that. He does take more chances than a guy, getting that big a payday would be expected to take. And so I think you're not going to see a third fight unless it's at a higher weight division. I think the days of middleweight for him are long gone.
And quickly, thoughts on Kovalev, the future for him?
If Kovalev really wants to fight again, what he needs to do is go back to Russia, go back to the Tractor Arena in his hometown, have a few farewell fights against domestic challengers, and call it a career. He's still accomplished a hell of a lot in his career. He has a lot to hold his head up for. He was really denied the one fight we all wanted to see against Adonis Stevenson. To me, that's the one regret of his entire career. But he's had some great victories. His victory over Bernard Hopkins, his victory over Pascal. He fought his way into the division, and we should all thank Sergey Kovalev for resurrecting the light heavyweight division. When he was in his prime, he was creating all the action in the division. He was creating all the excitement. All the attention was drawn because he was there. And the guys coming up underneath him really owe him a thank you for that. But is he ever going to fight at elite level again? I think we all know the answer is no.
A couple of questions here in the chat before we move on to talk about further fights. And for those who are checking us out live on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it.
That like button.
Olaf, the Mighty asks, would Bivol get a fair shake in Vegas. I mean, Kovalev was out throwing Canelo 3-1, and they were still scoring in Canelo's favor. David Moretti scored the first round to Canelo. Respond an answer for Olaf's question.
Olaf, you've made a really good point. It would be questionable. I mean, we all know that the Las Vegas judges are very familiar with Canelo. They favor him because they know him and because the crowds are so behind him. You know, judges are human. They hear crowd reaction. They hear the gasps and the cheers, and the body language of an arena is a real thing, and they're affected by it. They would be crazy not to admit it. They probably won't. So it would be challenging for B-Ball, but he might not have a choice. You know, how bad does he want the fight? I was pleasantly surprised that the scorecards at the time of the stoppage were fairly close. So I think it's a possibility he could get a fair shake. His technique and his skills are so apparent. It would be hard for a judge to deny him. I would prefer, though, that they do the fight in either New York or Los Angeles. New York's by far the better place for B-Ball, but an LA fight with him might be very interesting. He trains there. He's got a lot of fans in Southern California. Well, we'll see what happens.
And comment from Ivan DC. He says, in mentioning while Munguia's name was mentioned, he said he sees Munguia knocking Golovkin out with all due respect for Golovkin, but he will not risk that by fighting Munguia, a young, strong, and hungry fighter. He went on to say that Triple G won't risk the possibility of a third fight with Canelo by fighting Munguia. I hear you, Ivan. My problem is that in watching Munguia, yeah, he looked decent in his last fight. I cannot get that fight with Hogan out of my mind, and in the fights prior to that, as suspect, for lack of a better word, as Golovkin looked in his last fight against Derevyanchenko, I still would make him the heavy favorite against Munguia. Munguia just has he's young, he's strong, and he can punch, but Munguia still has far too many defensive deficiencies for my taste against the likes of a Golovkin, who's still the more experienced fighter. I think he's the more technically skilled fighter. I'll take his word that he was sick. Um, I just wouldn't at this point pick a Munguia to pick. I would not choose a Munguia. I would not pick a Munguia, excuse me, to win a fight with Triple G, even though Triple G is older and he seems to be showing some age at this point. Your thoughts on that, Gil?
I agree with you 100%. I believe Dennis Hogan won that fight with Munguia, and he hurt him several times. And Hogan is
that fight, excuse me, and also the Takeshi and in Inoue fight, in which that fight should not have been that tough for Munguia. Inoue made him dig and dig deep.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think Munguia is vulnerable to the body. I also think other than his punching skills, the rest of his boxing skills are still thin. From footwork and ring generalship alone, I think Golovkin would run him around the ring, put him where he wanted him, and take him out. The only danger is random power punch lands, and he couldn't do that against Dennis Hogan. What makes he thinks he's going to do it against Golovkin?
Let's move on to some other fights here because we're a little bit short on time. I see your comments here, Ivan. I respect them. I'll respond to them here in the chat while we talk about some other fights. The same night as Kovalev and Golovkin in Vegas, over in what I still call StubHub, you had Miguel Berchelt defending his WBC belt at 130 pounds against Jason Sosa. Look, I thought Jason Sosa would give Berchelt a decent scrap based on style, but in hindsight, and Timothy Bradley was correct in this. The mindset of Sosa, he tried to do a fight a certain way, but he wasn't disciplined enough to keep up with that. And in the end, Berchelt was just physically too strong, too powerful for the likes of Sosa. Stopped him in four and made it look easy in the process. He just bowled over Sosa. If you were able to see the fight after you got back from Vegas, your reaction, Gil?
Oh, we had plenty of time to watch the top ranked fights. We had all that delay, right?
That's true. That's true. You're right.
Not a problem. We fired that right up. Don't tell Golden Boy. Yeah, I really thought Sosa would give him more of a challenge. I didn't think Sosa would win. Sosa has stepped up to several championship level fights, and while he's made a good accounting of himself, he's always fallen just a little short. Although I still think he beat Nicholas Walters. I really, really do. That was a draw, but he won that damn fight. Be that as it may, I think that was his best performance of his career, and he got a draw. Yeah, Berchelt just kind of steamrolled him. It really surprised me. But Berchelt is absolutely, right now running the division. He needs to get some fights to unify and stop fighting these guys like Sosa.
Andre Ward said basically the same thing afterwards. Given the 130-pound landscape, it's kind of up in the air. Tank Davis recently moved up to 135. You got Tevin Farmer still there, IBF champion. You got Canelo, WBA champion, who's getting ready to fight later on this month, I believe. Jamal Herring, who we'll talk about later on in the show, he's fighting this weekend. The big fight for Burchell, where do you see it being? Who do you see it being against? Because he needs a big fight at this point to kind of establish himself as, without a doubt, the man at 130 pounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the most makeable fight for Burchell is probably Jamel Herring. But, Jamel, who is fighting this weekend, he'll be fighting in Fresno, competing with that, super big, high profile, matchup at the Staples Center this weekend. Yeah, which is just ridiculous nonsense. Herring is such a likable fighter. He's being well supported by Top Rank. They don't quite want to throw him to the wolves just yet. That would be a fight in-house for both guys. So it makes sense. It's makeable. But, I don't think that they want to do that yet. Kevin Farmer really does make some sense. And wouldn't that be an interesting style matchup between the two? They're so different. Farmer is just a brilliant technician. And then you've got Berchelt, who just plows through guys. The question I have is, do you try to make a match? And since Golden Boy and Top Rank on occasion will work together, do you see what would happen with a guy like Jojo Diaz? I don't know. Cancio, again, Cancio, Golden Boy fighter, great story. Other than Canelo, you start going down the ranks of who they've got in their stable who are title holders. It's not a huge list. Again, I don't think they want to risk Cancio just right now. And honestly, he wants a rematch with Jojo Diaz. So, those are sort of who we have to play with. It's really a tough division because it is in flux right now. And
Ivan in the chat is saying that Loma versus Berchelt. He says that Lomachenko doesn't do well with pressure fighters. It would be great to see him against Berchelt. Your thoughts?
Well, that's a good question. What division do they do it in?
And I asked him the question. He said both weights at one. I asked him at 130 or 135. He just says here both weights would seem fine, would be fine with him. Knowing Berchelt, he would move to 135 just to fight Loma.
Yeah. Well, that would certainly show some boldness. Lomachenko again. He is so skilled, and he's dealt with these power punching fighters before. It's not a bad call. I think from a money standpoint, it's not the biggest fight, but that's certainly an option. Berchelt's options really, here I am criticizing him. Fight guys that are tougher than Sosa. But really, from a promotional and a timing point of view, it's tough to find the right opponents for him.
I would chime in, and I would propose what I would co-sign what Timothy Bradley proposed, and that is a fight between Berchelt and Oscar Valdez, who's moving up to 130.
Yeah. And again, it's all in-house, it's all top rank. So that would make sense. Valdez needs a couple of get acquainted fights, though, at that weight before he tackles Berchelt. It shouldn't be his first fight in the division. And I believe he's got a fight on the books in the next couple of
later
months.
This year.
Yeah.
I just can't remember against who.
Yeah, just announced. Not a world beater by any means. And he's moving up in weight. So, you kind of give a guy a little bit of a pass who's going up in weight to test himself, which I will go backwards and note that while I say that a guy can be expected to take somewhat of a trial fight going up in weight, Canelo didn't do that. He just went up and went for it. So again, I get it. There's a lot of haters out there. There's a lot of doubters. Credit the man for doing that. I'm giving all these other guys a pass. Oh yeah, they move up. They get a tune-up fight. Canelo didn't even bother. Valdez is going to be facing Andres Gutierrez, who is a young Mexican fighter, 26 years old. A 26-year-old Mexican fighter who already has 41 professional fights. 40.
So that tells me he started really young.
Professional fights. Yeah, that's just flat out crazy. So he is your classic Mexican who turned pro at 16. He's been fighting for 10 years. 38-2 with 1 draw, 25 knockouts. He has never been stopped in his 2 losses. So that's interesting. And it's in Las Vegas at a small venue at the Cosmopolitan on the 30th of this month. So right at the end of the month. Should be interesting to see him moving up. And there's another fighter trained by Eddie and Chepo Reynoso, Canelo Alvarez's trainers.
Oh, indeed. Let's move over to Manchester, England, where Katie Taylor, undisputed, unified lightweight champion, moving up to 140 pounds to fight. Let me see if I can pronounce her name without butchering it. My apologies if I do. Christina Linardatou, fighting for Linardatou's 140-pound belt WBO. Taylor won, Gail, by unanimous decision, 97-93 on 2 scorecards, 96-94 in the third. But I'm watching this, and I'm starting to have some questions about Taylor. She moved a whole lot in this fight. Really didn't settle down. Coming off of the fight with Pearson, 1, I'm questioning how much of an inside fighter she really is. 2, I'm watching this, and I'm based on her last 2 fights. I'm thinking if she fights Amanda Serrano, Serrano beats her.
I think
your reaction.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I have been an admirer of Katie Taylor's. I like her skill set. I like her approach to punching. She's got good form. All her fundamentals are solid. But as she has stepped up in competition on the professional side of the sport and encountered some of these rough and tumble fighters on the women's pro side of the game, she hasn't looked that great. Katie stayed amateur a long, long time. And she only entered the pro ranks at age 30. And sometimes there's a difficult adjustment fully when you've been an amateur that long and have to then transition yourself to the professional boxing game. They are different. They are very different. Some really skilled amateurs can't do it. They just can't fully make it happen. I'm starting to wonder if Katie got part of the way there and has stalled, or is she simply running into professional opponents who are willing to get in there and get rough and bully and mix it up, and she doesn't quite like it? Because you don't.
Or has she reached her peak?
Or has she reached her peak? Or, are we seeing age issues? She's 33. It's hard to say, but yeah, I wasn't. She got a win. It wasn't close. There was no controversy. I can't say I was horribly impressed with the fight. So whether she's got to take a hard look at her approach, whether she's got to turn into a more technical fighter at this age, at this level, I'm not sure what she needs to do. She has some hard thinking to do.
Let's move on to some news here.
I will interrupt and say one thing. Compare the Taylor fight this weekend to the women's flyweight title fight on the Canelo Kovalev card.
Yeah, talk about that right quick. I actually missed that. I actually missed that bout. You was at ringside for it. Talk about it right quick.
Best fight of the night was the flyweight title fight between Seniesa Estrada, super bad, out of East Los Angeles, versus Marlon Esparza, the Olympic bronze medalist out of Houston, Texas. Seniesa was going up in weight. She's fought all her fights at 108. She went up to 112 to face Marlon. Both were undefeated. And they fought 3-minute rounds. That's my slow clap. Thank you, Nevada State Athletic Commission. Thank you, promoters. Thank you, girls, for doing that. And that is an option in a lot of states, not just in Nevada. Something like 16 states permit 3-minute rounds, including Nevada, New York, and New Jersey. Like to see more of that. This was a barn burner fight. Those women did not hold back. They went right after each other. It was a power punching display. And it was fueled by some true and genuine quality hate between both of them. They do not like each other. They've gone after each other on social media for a couple of years now. So this was a grudge match. And they meant business. The fans loved it. Unfortunately, there was a lot of headbutting going on. They were leaning in on each other. And now I'm trying to remember the round. I believe the 4th round, Seniesa opened up a really wicked cut in not a great place on Esparza. It was pretty much right at the top of the forehead, center on the hairline. And per women's boxing rules, women have to have their hair held down either by braids or bound. They cannot let their hair fly. And it is a rule in women's boxing. Their hair's got to be secured. So a lot of the women braid their hair tight to their head. So it's pulling back on the forehead anyway. And then you get cut right there. It was a bad place. I bet anything it hurt like hell. And it was bleeding like hell. Credit to her cut man, Carlos. He did a pretty good job, but it was a challenge. And she was, as rounds went on, it got worse, kept bleeding. It did obscure vision. She was carrying on, but finally got to the point of the end of the 9th round with only 1 round to go. The physician, the ringside physician, stopped the fight. Estrada really did dominate the fight. There was no controversy. Unless Esparza scored a knockout, she was not going to win that fight. She was very disappointed to have it stopped short of the final bell. She was very upset by the cards. She felt she was winning. I didn't see it that way. Estrada she has really improved her punch selection. She's one of the few women's fighters that's super effective to the body, and she got the job done. It was an excellent fight. And for people who don't think they like quality women's boxing, I'll show them that video.
Sorry, I was on mute. Comment from Ivan in the live YouTube chat. He said he's glad to see women's boxing have more time to think in the ring now. 3 minutes rounds, something Gail has been advocating for years, both over in Communities Digital News and here on Pound for Pound Box Report. It's good to see such a high-profile women's bout go 3-minute rounds. On a last note, in connection to women's boxing, before we go into some news here, kind of segueing into some news here. I want to give kind of thoughts here to one Nicola Adams, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, WBO flyweight champion, who surprisingly announced her retirement yesterday due to fears of fears over her eyes. In short, she announced her retirement because if she would continue on with her career, boxing would have posed a serious threat to her eyes and would have possibly led to irreparable damage and permanent vision loss. So thoughts and prayers, or thoughts, I should say, to one Nicola Adams, who had to abruptly retire yesterday. Let's move on to some other news here. Short news segment here, one main story here. Gail, if you want to talk about anything else newsworthy, please do. Tony Harrison, Jermell Charlo, they fought December last year. Harrison upsetting Charlo to win belt at 154 pounds. I think it was WBC. Well, they're finally fighting a rematch. Rematch is going to happen December 21st. Harrison has been on the shelf due to lower body injuries. He's well enough to fight a rematch. I don't think he's 100%, but it looks like the rematch is going to happen. Your thoughts on the fight, on the fact that we finally getting this rematch a go?
I'm really glad to see the rematch. Here's the thing. They're fighting in Ontario, California, not Canada, California. Ontario is a small inland empire city just north of Riverside, California, about an hour outside LA proper. What the hell is a guy from Detroit and a guy from Houston fighting in Ontario, California? And the fight date is the 21st of December. And now, I'm real glad that it's hour and 15 minutes or so up the road from me. I will be there. But the timing is one thing. There are probably people who have time off during the holidays and, might enjoy going to see a fight. But what the hell? Why isn't it in Houston or Detroit? I don't get it. So that's a head scratcher to me. I'm looking forward to the rematch. We'll see what happens. There is a concern to me about Harrison's layoff and, being a little rusty to take this fight. Charlo has had a fight since their first fight. Almost, in fact, it will be 1 day shy of a year ago to the day when they have their rematch. Charlo's had a fight since then, but you're right. Harrison has been inactive. That's not a positive for him. Charlo knocked out Jorge Cota in June, so that was fairly easy work for him. We'll see what happens in the rematch, but truly head scratcher over the location.
I'll give you the opportunity to mention any other news, any other events or stories that you think are newsworthy right now.
Well, we got to fight up the freeway. I think I've heard about some fight at the Staples Center.
Oh, dear.
Two guys making their debut. I don't really know these guys very well.
Do we have to?
No, we do not. No, we don't. No, we do not. However, Devin Haney is fighting this Saturday at Staples Center. So glad to see young Mr. Haney back in the ring. This is once again a stay busy fight, but I would much rather see a young up and coming guy like Haney have a stay busy fight than no fight at all. He is fighting an opponent who is unbeaten, but who is very young and untested. He's I take that back. He does have one loss. His name is Zaur Zaur Abdullayev. We love those Russian names. Young Russian, 25, gonna give it a shot. There is an interim World Boxing Council World Lightweight title at stake. And good to see Devin Haney in the ring. We all know how this is going to go. That's okay.
I think the quote unquote match that Gail and I are loath to talk about, and why is this Haney on the undercard? Is the rematch between KSI and Logan Paul? I'm not going to mention too much about it because I'm highly. This fight is a farce. Why is it getting so much attention? Why is it even being sanctioned as a boxing match? I do not know. I've got standards. I refuse to give this fight that much attention. The fact that you have not just one world title fight, but two, because Billy Joe Saunders is making the first defense of his WBO super middleweight title on this same card. It's a joke. It's ridiculous.
It is. I did
nothing against those two gentlemen, but with two YouTubers, getting this kind of attention, come on.
Did we discuss? I was off the show last week. I don't believe this had reached the news just yet. The suspension of one. Wait for it. You know who I'm going to talk about?
Oh dear.
Oh. Can I go there? I'm not sure. The man that gives me nightmares, that pisses me off, that got yet again one more chance and once again blew it, screwed up, embarrassing the entire boxing community, his father and his trainer. One Chavez Jr. was suspended, not for getting popped in a drug test. He is getting suspended because he ran to avoid having to take a VADA test. He vacated the premises. He hid out. He avoided the test, and under the rules, they suspended him. So Daniel Jacobs is technically without an opponent right now for his upcoming fight in December in New York. However, Gabriel Rosado was put on the undercard specifically to be a backup for if and when, although I say when, not if, Chavez Jr. screwed up. So hasn't been signed yet, not official that the replacement is happening. Personally,
that's a damn shame. They have to have a guy basically as a fallback plan because they can't trust Chavez Jr.
Well, you know what? Truthfully, they used to do that with Tyson Fury. They put Carlos Takam on the undercard, who was willing to step up, or Charles Martin. Those guys have been heavyweight opponent backups on the down low for years. So Rosado was willing to do it, and props to him. What the hell? Why not? That guy will take any fight anytime, and you have to respect that attitude. Truthfully, Jacobs Rosado, I like that a lot more as a fight. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, what a shake my head moment, right? You see, Chavez Jr. suspended. Okay, you assume he's getting popped in a drug test. Oh no, he's getting popped because he didn't take the drug test. He ran away from VADA. Great. And if I'm Freddie Roach, I walk over to the nearest wall and start banging my head with it, saying, why did I agree to train this idiot again?
I know, right? Let's get to talking about some serious. Let's get to talk about some serious boxing here. Funny comment there in Ivan here on the YouTube chat. Funny comment.
And you're welcome, Ivan. Yeah, and we're thinking of you guys out there. We don't know how to torture you with this.
Because no offense, we do the show live on YouTube weekly, but for these two basically YouTube personalities who love the sport to be getting so much. I mean, I guess you can't knock their hustle, but again, I have standards, and I just will not. I refuse. Let's get back to some real boxing here, and talk about a fight that's happening the same night as that so-called main event happening at Staples Center. This is happening in Fresno. Interesting locale, but still interesting fight. Jamel Herring, one of the feel-good stories earlier this year, winning the WBO junior lightweight title of Amasio Ito, making the first defense of that WBO junior lightweight title against Lamont Roach, Gail Lamont Roach Jr. Fight is going to be on ESPN Plus. It's not that Roach is a bad fighter, Gail. He's hot. He's pretty competent. My problem is I look at Herring and I look at this fight and I see two boxers. The problem is I just see Herring being just slightly a level above Roach in there. Herring can do a lot of the same things that Roach can, but he could do it a little bit better. For me, Roach's only chance here is with power, but I get the suspicion that Herring, he's one of those guys who's been kind of a disappointment early on in his career. You thought he had real promise coming up, and the backstory and the amateur pedigree. I think that now that he has a title, he's going to be the classic case of one of those fighters who improves significantly once he has a belt. And I think you're going to see that marked improvement in his initial title defense Saturday in Fresno.
Yeah, I think so. Given somewhat safe fight for his title defense. Roach is very skilled. However, Roach is not a power puncher. He's not got a lot to hurt Herring, and Herring should be able to outbox him. Herring's a very admirable guy. This fight's taking place on November 9th. It's on the eve of Veterans Day weekend. It's also the eve of the Marine Corps birthday on November 10th, which Marines around the world, active and retired, take very seriously. So I like the connection there. I like the tribute to service. And although I just talked about Ontario being a damned weird location, there's been quite a fight fan community developed in Fresno thanks to Jose Ramirez and Top Rank. They'll fill that venue. They will fill that venue this weekend, and everybody will be happy to see this fight. There's some interesting fights on the undercard. Kubrat, Kissing Bandit, Pulev. Oh, by the way, did you hear that's his new nickname, right?
Oh, dear.
For me, I gave it to him. Pulev is making his return on this card. He's in the co-main event. Several other prospects in the Top Rank stable are going to be on that card. Esquiva Falco, the middleweight from Brazil. Amir Imam is on this card. Interesting. David Kaminsky, who's a young middleweight, interesting guy who is a native of Israel and fights out of Southern California. That's a good appearance for him. So, all in all, not a bad little card, and certainly an alternative choice for the purists among you who do not want to watch anything coming out of that Staples Center this weekend.
Okay, last but certainly not least, we talked about this fight last week because by the time that I put this up on the RSS feed platforms like iTunes and Spotify and Google Podcasts and Google Play Music and the like, the fight will take place. However, because you weren't available, because you were busy teaching, Gail, I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about this fight now, and that is the up and coming Showdown World Boxing Super Series Bantamweight final, World Boxing Super Series Bantamweight tournament final between Naoya Inoue and Nonito Donaire is going to be happening just in a few hours. We're recording the show live November 6th. Fight is going to be happening in the early morning hours of November the 7th. Give you the opportunity to give your thoughts and your predictions on that fight now.
Yeah, what a barn burner of a fight. For those of you not willing to set an alarm and get up in the dark to watch this fight, it is at 5 a.m. Eastern Time, 2 a.m. on the West Coast, live stream on DAZN from the Super Arena in Saitama, Japan, the final of the World Boxing Super Series in the Bantamweight division between the monster, Naoya Inoue, and Nonito Donaire, the Filipino Flash. Should be a fun fight for as long as it lasts. I don't think it's going to last all that long, so you can all go right back to bed. I don't think you're going to miss a whole lot of sleep. I mean, obviously, any fight Inoue is in, he's going to be favored. This is sort of Donaire's last run near the end of his career toward the top. He got into this fight after Zolani Tete was injured, after his opponent, Ryan Burnett, was injured. He's certainly deserving. Donaire's had a great career, but yeah, he is just no match for this kid. I know it gets stopped. The question is when? First half of the fight? First quarter of the fight? For God's sakes, first round of the fight? I don't think he'll go past the middle rounds. There's just no way it's going to go past 6. Donaire is tough, but so far we've seen a lot of tough guys go up against this young Japanese phenomenon, and he just mows them down. So either set your alarm or get up just a little early for work tomorrow and enjoy this fight with your coffee, because it might not take too long for you to watch it.
If I get up, I'm seriously thinking about doing a live show, reaching out to the homie Gus on Skype, and I'm seriously thinking about doing a live show tomorrow if I can get up in time. Comment last from Olaf in the chat. He said he wanted to see Jacobs murder Chavez Jr. I ain't gonna use the word murder. That may be too strong of a word, but yeah, it's time we get rid of this dude. He annoys me. His manner offends. Why he keeps getting chances, I don't know.
Because of his father. He disrespects the sport. He disrespects his father. He disrespects the people who give of their time and talent to work with him, and then he throws it in the trash. Truly, the only reason Freddie Roach could have possibly agreed to work with him again after the nightmare of training him before was as a favor and in deference to his father. And it's time for his father to say, no mas, you on your own, go find something else to do and stop embarrassing me. It's ridiculous.
Indeed, I think we're going to end the show on that note. Daniel wasn't able to make it. I think he had some other family obligations that he had to tend to. That's certainly understandable. Want to thank Olaf. Want to thank Ivan in the chat again. If you like what you've heard, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I want to thank you, both of you, Olaf and Daniel, for your questions and your commentary. I'm going to go to you, Gail. Your question here, Olaf. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this, Gail, just to troll. My apologies.
Oh,
Olaf
oh,
asks, are you excited about all the new fans that Paul and KSI will bring to the sport? And I admit I am trolling you with that question from Olaf.
do we really want? You know, I, let me just say this. I'm a woman who prefers quality over quantity, and I'll leave it at that.
Nice way of handling that. Nice way of handling that.
And I applaud and slow clap a good troll every time.
Gail from Communities Digital News, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk small business, for those who want to talk media, because you do teach media, do media training on the side. Let the folks know where they can find you.
And for those that want to troll all in good fun, you can find my regular column on Communities Digital News, which is COM, COMM, Digi, DIGI News, comdiginews.com. My Twitter and Instagram handles are PR Pro San Diego. Troll away.
For those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk music, for those who want to talk fitness, you know what it is on Twitter, Brother JR, at Brother JR76. As I said to begin the show, if you want to find out all things regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the blog page is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. That's the link. Check the top right of the blog page. You will find links to find where to find us on social media, where to find us on all platforms that carry RSS feed. Where to find the links to donate to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, and the links to the my online fitness page. Again, as I said before, let's build together. November group challenge. It is underway. I think Gail is going to I believe Gail is going to participate, right?
Yes, I am indeed.
So yeah, give me see if I can do this right quick. It will not show it, but yeah. No, it's not going to be able to, it's not allowing me to show it, but yeah, my Let's Build Together Fitness Challenge, see if I can do this. No, it's not going to allow me to share it, but give me a quick second. It's not going to allow me to share it. Let's Build Together challenge that I'm doing. If you're interested in any fun, interesting videos, challenging videos, nutritional tips, motivation, advice, and whatnot, is happening this month. Just check the top right of the blog page, the links to my online fitness page. Let me try it one more time, see if I can get the screen to show up. Nah, it's not going to allow me to do it. I was going to share the what it looks like and all that, but it's not going to allow me to do it here on YouTube. Unfortunately, it's not going to allow me to do it, unfortunately. But anyway, but yeah, Let's Build Together group fitness challenge is happening this month, started on the 4th, November 4th to November the 30th. On the next episode, I will say that it will probably be a very short show because there is nothing really happening boxing-wise on the weekend of the 16th. All the good boxing is happening on the 23rd with Wilder and Ortiz rematch and all the other fights that are happening that weekend. So next week, it would be mainly a recap show. Do a recap of Inoue and Donaire, do a recap of Jamel Herring and Lamont Roach, rematch of Devin Haney, because again, I refuse to talk about that KSI Logan Paul rematch. Nope. And any other boxing news that's going to be happening in the interim. So for Gail Falkenthal from Communities Digital News, I am your host, Michael W. This has been episode 271 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Again, I want to thank Olaf. I want to thank Ivan for joining us on live. Thanks for joining us live on YouTube. Thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate your questions and comments. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.